Okay, Carson Beck. All right, quarterback I've been really excited to talk about. Quarterback who had his best game of the season, best game of his career, who's been taking steps each and every game, and he really showcased the game today, or he really showcased his ability today. I came away after watching the game today, and I was wondering, is he the best quarterback in the SEC? Maybe it's not being talked about yet, but if he has another game or two like he played against Kentucky, it definitely will be, right? Best quarterback in the SEC. It's up for debate right now, but I think it's, you have Daniels, maybe Carson Beck, Spencer Rattler. Like, you got a few quarterbacks right now playing at that level. That's another conversation for the time, but I think it's worth noting for Carson Beck. So let's talk Beck's game. 28 of 35, 389 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, and there were 2 drops too. So those numbers could have been even better. Just like we talked about Jaden Daniels, those numbers could have been even better, maybe even another touchdown. I think one of those passes was actually in the end zone. I think it was Bowers. Correct me if I'm wrong if you're a Georgia fan, but I think it was. But anyways, regardless who it was, those numbers could have been even better for Carson Beck. And the biggest takeaway watching this Georgia offense and Carson Beck was they started fast. That was like the big knock, right, against Georgia so far this season was, they're starting slow, whatever. I don't know, maybe they were just taking a little while to get the offense figured out. You got a new quarterback, right? You're figuring out some new stuff. You got new pieces in play. Maybe we're just taking a little while to get it figured out, and you go against – everyone's talking about the Kentucky defense, this and that. Well, they could have – I mean, what was the – I don't have the exact final score in front of me, but if they kept Carson Beck in the fourth quarter, they could have scored more touchdowns. Like, Kentucky's defense had no answer for them, and that's largely because Carson Beck was so freaking accurate. It was able to make every type of throw and different types of throws as well. But before I keep going on Carson Beck, I did put this note here, and we need to give a shout out and some love to the offensive line. Georgia's offensive line was unreal. I mean, unreal. Carson Beck had all the time in the world to throw. Out of all his dropbacks, again, he had 35 attempts, I think so 36, 37 dropbacks, whatever the total dropbacks was. Only one dropback he had pressure. That's unreal. He had all day to throw. And if you give a quarterback like Beck all day to throw, well, he's going to do exactly what he just did to you against Kentucky. This accurate, right? The offensive line was unreal. That led to so much accuracy, man. That offensive line, that's great. But Carson Beck did exactly what an elite level quarterback is going to do if you have that type of protection in front of you. It's going to dice you up. So of the six of his 7 incompletions came on deep throws. So that tells me there's only one throw that wasn't 20 yards in the air or less that was incomplete. That's pretty freaking accurate, right? And he was 5 of 11 of 20 yards or more of throwing the ball 20 yards or more downfield, $161 and 2 touchdowns. But 5 of 11, 20 yards or more downfield, 7 incompletions in total, had 2 drops. And again, 6 of the 7 incompletions were those deep throws, explosive throws, and 1 came on interception, right? So he was able to hit a bunch of short stuff, deep stuff. Like typically, if you're talking football 101, you can say, okay, short game to set up the deep game. Well, he didn't need to do that. Like early on in the game, it was deep throwing. Like early on in the game, he was taking those shots, doing it from the very start, from the very get-go. I mean, he was able to do anything like we talked about. The biggest success he had on, the biggest type of throws he had on was play action, though. And that was working from the very jump. Every single touchdown of Carson Beck's from Kentucky came on play action. So 4 touchdowns were off play action. Usually you're like, okay, let's set up the run game, let's get some play action going, and then, that will help the pass game. It's kind of the opposite. The play action was working right from the get-go, and that helped the run game get going, and that had some deep passes get going. He was 13 of 14 for 4 touchdowns, 214 yards passing off play action. So he had 389 yards passing in total, and 214 yards were off play action. The play action literally helped set up the run game. So Carson Beck, I think after watching this performance, he's got to be talked about as one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, especially if he has another game or 2 like this in a row. They haven't looked too much into the schedule, coming up. But, now they're going to be starting to play a few more SEC East teams. And so you can anticipate hopefully some more games like this. And he had a good game against Auburn last week too, right? Not to get too off topic, recapping week 6, but he was a big reason why they were able to beat Auburn that last drive, those passes to Brock Bowers. And then it's almost like he picked up where he left off against Auburn. So great game overall for Carson Beck. We're playing really good quarterback. That was really fun to watch. If you didn't watch Carson Beck yesterday, go back and watch that, especially if you're a quarterback junkie, especially if you're a college football junkie. Go back and watch Carson Beck's game from yesterday. It was a clinic on what a quarterback should do and how a quarterback should run an offense. Again, shout out to the offensive line. Only 1 drop back with pressure out of the 36, 37 dropbacks that he had. Great job by Carson Beck. Okay, one more quarterback that we'll kind of do a deep dive on.